Capítulo 1. The clock struck midnight. The first time I drove down that highway, I didn't notice the stillness. The asphalt stretched ahead like an endless ribbon, flanked by trees that whispered secrets in the wind. My headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating nothing but fog that clung to the road like a living thing. I was alone, or at least I thought I was. Then the clock struck 12. Not on my phone, not on my dashboard, but somewhere deep in the marrow of the night. A chime so hollow, so impossibly sharp, it seemed to pierce time itself. The engine's hum faltered. My hands gripped the steering wheel tighter as the world around me froze. The raindrops that had been pattering against my windshield hung in midair. The fog paused, suspended like smoke in a photograph. I blinked. Nothing moved. Nothing except the highway itself. It was subtle at first, a shimmer, a ripple across the asphalt, like the road was breathing beneath me. Then I saw it. A shadow flickered at the corner of my vision, tall and thin, standing impossibly still at the edge of the fog. I swerved instinctively, heart pounding, but when I looked again, there was nothing there. Just the road, just the silence. A voice whispered, soft, almost playful, yet edged with malice. "You shouldn't have come here." I spun in my seat, searching for its source. My radio crackled, then hissed, and for a fleeting moment I thought I heard laughter. But laughter isn't enough to describe it. It was a chorus of voices, all layered on top of one another, each one pleading, screaming, laughing, accusing, and then it stopped. Silence again. I tried to move, to accelerate, to get away, but the wheel felt like it had grown roots, the pedals frozen under my feet. Panic clawed at my chest as I realized the highway wasn't just a road. It was a trap, a place where time had been arrested, where every traveler who dared enter became a ghost suspended between moments. The fog thickened, curling around my mirrors, pressing against the glass like a living hand. Shadows stretched across the lanes, elongating into shapes that defied geometry, defied reason. My mind screamed to turn back, to escape, but I was already too far in, too far to leave. Then, just as abruptly as it had stopped, time resumed, or maybe it was something else. My engine roared back to life. The raindrops fell again, hitting the windshield with a rhythm that matched my heartbeat. The shadow was gone, the fog thinned, but the road had changed. Something had marked it, something ancient and cruel, and I knew with a bone-deep certainty that midnight would come again, and when it did, I would not be alone. Somewhere ahead the highway waited, patient and eternal, counting down to the next strike, and I, foolish and alive, had answered its call. Capítulo 2. Ghostly Hitchhiker. The highway had changed since that first midnight. I could feel it beneath my tires, a pulse that wasn't mine, a heartbeat that belonged to the road itself. The fog had thickened overnight, curling around the trees, swallowing the lanes in gray mist that smelled faintly of ash and rain. I thought I knew this highway. I was wrong. That's when I saw him. A figure standing at the edge of the asphalt, thumb extended, a silent plea. He, or it, wore a coat too heavy for the summer air, shoulders slumped like the weight of centuries. His face was hidden beneath the brim of a hat, tilted just enough to keep the eyes in shadow. For a moment I hesitated. The rational part of my brain screamed, "Do not stop." But some other part, the part that had already tasted midnight's strange hold, made my foot twitch toward the brake. The car slowed. The fog parted slightly, as if giving him room to step onto the road. My engine seemed to hum a warning, a low vibration that rattled through my chest. I reached for the door handle, heart thudding, fingers slick with sweat. "Where are you going?" I whispered, though I didn't really want an answer. The figure lifted his head, and then I saw it. The pale, too perfect face, smooth as porcelain, eyes hollow yet full of sorrow. He smiled. Not a friendly smile, not a human smile. Something about it made my stomach turn, made my pulse hammer in my throat. I opened the door. He didn't speak, didn't move, didn't even breathe. But when I glanced in the rearview mirror, I saw it. His reflection, reflected, yet impossible. There was no glass behind him, no frame, just him, staring, watching, waiting. I shut the door. My hands trembled on the wheel. The fog thickened again, swallowing the lines of the road. And then he was gone. Not walking, not running, simply vanished, as if he had never existed. I told myself it was a trick of the light, a hallucination born of exhaustion and fear. But deep down, I knew the highway didn't play tricks. It revealed truths, dark truths. Minutes or hours, I could no longer tell. Later, I saw him again, standing further down the road. Same posture, same coat, same shadowed eyes. And then another figure appeared, smaller this time, a child clutching a tattered doll. Then another, and another, until the road was lined with silhouettes that had no right to be alive. I pressed my foot to the accelerator, heart slamming against my ribs. They didn't move, they didn't follow, they just watched, waiting for midnight to strike again. Somewhere behind the fog, a voice whispered my name. Not the voice of a person, but of the highway itself, patient and unyielding. You can't leave. Not yet. I gripped the wheel, knuckles white. My headlights cut through the mist, searching for salvation, but there was none. Only the ghostly hitchhiker and the highway, eternal, unyielding, counting down the seconds until midnight. And I realized with a cold certainty that the next strike would not just freeze time, it would claim me. Capítulo 3. The vanishing car. The highway seemed endless, a dark ribbon curling through the forest, yet every turn felt familiar, as if I had driven it 1,000 times before. My hands were tense on the wheel, eyes darting to the rearview mirror, still haunted by the ghostly hitchhiker I had glimpsed the night before. I told myself it was just fatigue, a trick of my mind, but deep down I knew better. Then I saw it. A car up ahead, headlights piercing the fog like twin knives. A sedan, black and sleek, gliding silently along the asphalt. At first, I thought it was my imagination. How could a car appear here in the middle of nowhere at this hour? But it moved with intent, steady and calm, its taillights glowing like embers in the mist. I accelerated to catch up, curious and unnerved. Something about it drew me, a pull I couldn't resist. As I approached, the air grew colder. My breath fogged the inside of the windshield. I could feel the highway shifting beneath me, subtle waves, almost like it was alive. And then it happened. The sedan flickered, like a candle caught in a draft. Its shape shivered, blurred. I blinked, thinking my eyes were deceiving me. But when I looked again, it was gone, vanished. No skid marks, no sounds, no trace. Nothing but the asphalt stretching ahead, empty and unforgiving. My heart thundered. I slowed, gripping the wheel with shaking hands. Had it been a hallucination? A phantom car? Fear clawed at me, a visceral, choking terror. And then I noticed the faint outline on the road, almost like a shadow embedded in the asphalt, the shape of a vehicle. But no matter how closely I looked, it wasn't solid. It was wrong. A whisper brushed against my ear, soft and chilling. You saw it. You can't unsee it. I spun in my seat, looking around. Nothing. Only fog. Only the endless highway. But a sense of presence lingered, pressing against my skin, cold and heavy. I dared not move, dared not breathe too loudly, afraid that the next second might summon it back, or something worse. The road ahead rippled again, a faint distortion, like heat rising from concrete. And there it was, the sedan, closer this time, and then farther, and then gone, reappearing at the edge of my vision, then dissolving into mist. My pulse raced, mind teetering on the edge of panic. The highway wasn't just a road. It was a corridor of vanished things, of lost travelers, of time itself bending to its will. I realized with a cold clarity that the highway had rules. 1. Nothing that appeared here was meant to stay. 2. The line between reality and illusion didn't exist. And 3. If I continued, I would be next. I gripped the wheel and pressed onward, even as the fog thickened, even as the shadows danced just beyond my vision. Somewhere ahead, the road waited, patient and eternal. And I knew, deep in my bones, that the next strike of midnight would bring more than silence. It would bring truth. A truth I wasn't sure I wanted to see. Capítulo 4. Radio whispers. The hum of my engine was a small comfort, but the highway had changed again. The fog seemed thicker, curling like smoke around the edges of the road. Shadows pressed against the tree line, shifting with impossible intent. Every mile felt longer, every heartbeat louder. I thought I was alone until the radio crackled. Static. Not unusual for a stretch of abandoned highway, I told myself. But then came the whispers, low, soft, almost playful, threading through this white noise. At first they were indistinct. My name, a laugh that wasn't mine, then words that pierced through reason. "You shouldn't be here," it said. I twisted the dial, searching for clarity, but the whispers only grew louder. Layered voices, overlapping like a chorus from another world, murmured secrets I didn't want to hear. "Do you remember? You can't escape. They're waiting." My hands gripped the wheel tighter. Every instinct screamed to drive faster, but the highway had other plans. The speedometer wavered, needle trembling as though time itself was unstable. My reflection in the rearview mirror seemed to shiver, morphing for a split second into someone, or something, I didn't recognize. Then I heard it clearly, a story, whispered in fragments, bleeding through the static. "He drove here once, never left. She waited. Forever. The child, lost." I realized with a sickening dread that these were not random voices. They were echoes, memories, lives trapped on this highway, looping, waiting for someone new to arrive. And somehow I had answered the call. The static surged, turning into a low growl that vibrated the car, rattling the windows. A voice directly behind me, cold and urgent. "Turn back." I did, instinctively spinning the wheel only to find the road behind me, the same, endless, unchanging. The trees leaned closer, shadows stretching impossibly tall. The fog wrapped around the headlights, suffocating them, pressing against the glass. And then came the final whisper, close, intimate, almost in my ear. "You've seen too much. You belong now." Panic clawed at my chest. I stomped the brake, swerved, cursed, screamed, but the car wouldn't respond. The highway had me. I could feel it, like a pulse through the tires, through the asphalt, through my own bones. The voices laughed then, a chilling symphony of despair. The radio fell silent, and in that silence, I understood. The whispers were warnings, or perhaps invitations. Either way, the highway was patient, eternal, counting down to midnight once more. And when the clock struck, time would not merely stop, it would demand something from me, something I wasn't yet ready to give. I swallowed hard, gripping the wheel, eyes fixed ahead. Somewhere in the fog, the whispers waited, patient, knowing. And I realized with a clarity that chilled me to the bone, I was no longer just a driver. I was a listener, and listening on this highway could kill you. Capítulo 5, Mirror on the Road. The fog had become thicker, denser, like a living curtain that pressed against the windshield. My hands were slick with sweat, gripping the wheel so tightly that my knuckles ached. Every mile I drove felt like a descent, a slow slide into something darker than fear itself. I told myself it was exhaustion, that the highway was nothing more than asphalt and fog. But I had long since learned that reason did not belong here. Then I saw it. A mirror, standing upright in the middle of the lane, impossibly intact, as if placed by unseen hands. Its surface was black at first, absorbing the dim light of my headlights. I slowed instinctively, heart hammering, and the blackness gave way to reflection. My reflection, or what should have been my reflection. At first I laughed nervously. It was me, right? But as I stared, my smile faltered. The eyes in the glass weren't mine. Too wide, too hollow, glinting with something cruel. My lips curled into a grin I hadn't made, twisting into a sneer that sent a shiver down my spine. I blinked. It mimicked me perfectly. Every motion, every twitch, every thought. And then it moved independently, leaned forward, whistled softly. The whisper was unmistakable, coming not from the radio, not from outside, but from the glass itself. "You're not ready to leave." I slammed my foot on the accelerator. The tires screeched, the car shaking violently, but the mirror stayed. It didn't move, didn't fall. It simply waited, patient and mocking, reflecting a version of me I didn't recognize. A version that had already surrendered to this highway, that had already become part of its infinite darkness. Fear clawed at my throat as I glanced away, then back. My reflection was smiling wider now, a malevolent parody of my own face, and I realized it knew me. Not just my face, my fears, my memories. It knew every sin I had buried, every regret I had tried to forget, and it was hungry. The road seemed to shift, the fog swirling around the mirror like smoke in a fire. Shadows of trees bent unnaturally, reaching toward me. pressing the car closer. I wanted to scream, to turn, to run, but the reflection in the glass raised a hand, and instinctively I froze. My own hand lifted against my will, as if the mirror had claimed control. A voice, no, not a voice, a thought pounded in my skull. "We are the same. You belong here, as do all who see." The headlights flickered, the tires groaned, and for a terrifying heartbeat, I felt my mind split. One half desperate to escape, the other half already dissolving into that black reflection, already part of the highway's endless nightmare. When I finally drove past, the mirror vanished. The lane ahead was empty, normal, as if it had never been there, but I knew better. The reflection had marked me, and somewhere deep inside I feared it would follow me, waiting for the next strike of midnight. And the next time it did, I might not be driving at all. Capítulo 6, the road that loops. The highway had a rhythm now, a pulse beneath the tires, subtle but insistent, like it was alive and breathing. Each turn I took felt familiar, too familiar. I had only been driving for hours, or maybe days, but the trees, the fog, the asphalt itself seemed to repeat, looping endlessly. My reflection in the rearview mirror was pale, tired, but unmistakably me. And yet I was certain I had passed this curve before. Then I realized I had. Another bend, another rise, and there it was again, the same twisted tree with its gnarled limbs reaching for the sky. The same rusted sign leaning at a precarious angle, warning of a dead end, though it had never been there before. My stomach sank. The highway was a loop, infinite and cruel, folding over itself in ways that defied reason. Panic pressed against my chest. I tried to accelerate, to break free, but the speedometer wavered, needle trembling as though the car itself were unsure of its own motion. Every attempt to escape felt like running in place. Every mile circling me back to the same cursed bend. And then I saw them. Figures. Dozens of them, standing at the edge of the road. Some tall, some small, some hunched as if carrying invisible weights. They were still, silent, their faces hidden in shadow, yet I felt their eyes burning into me. One raised a hand, beckoning, and another stepped forward, vanishing before my eyes. Each time I blinked, more appeared. The highway had inhabitants, trapped in its loops, endless repetitions of their own terror. I tried to turn around. The car responded sluggishly, the steering wheel heavy as lead. Behind me, the road stretched back impossibly far, bending and twisting in ways that made no sense. It was the same trees, the same fog, the same black asphalt, but somehow it was new. And yet, the loop was inevitable. A whisper slithered through the air, curling around my ears. There is no leaving, only returning, only the loop. My hands shook, my heartbeat drummed in my skull. I realized with horror that every choice I had made, the turns, the accelerations, even the stops, had already been made. I was living the same moments over and over, a ghost trapped in a repeating nightmare. And the highway was patient, eternal, watching me struggle, watching me fail. The shadows shifted. One stepped closer. I recognized its shape, its posture. It was the reflection from the mirror. My reflection, my twin, and it smiled. I screamed, pressing my foot to the pedal, desperate to break the cycle. The loop stretched on, swallowing everything around me, bending time and space into a maze with no exit. The fog thickened, the air grew heavy, and the pulse of the road grew louder, pounding against my bones. I knew deep in my marrow that the loop would not release me. Not tonight, not ever. The highway was infinite, and I was just another traveler, trapped forever in its relentless circle. And when midnight struck again, I would begin the loop anew, helpless, haunted, and utterly alone. Capítulo 7. Stranger's Toll. I thought I had seen it all. The loops, the fog, the shadows that whispered and laughed. But the highway had one more lesson. One final cruelty for those foolish enough to traverse it. He appeared suddenly, stepping out from the fog as if born from the darkness itself. Not a hitchhiker, not a figure of flesh and bone, something else entirely. Tall, impossibly thin, with a coat darker than midnight and eyes that glimmered like shattered glass. He didn't move in the natural sense. He simply existed, standing in the lane as if the highway itself had planted him there. I slammed on the brakes, tires screaming against asphalt, but the car seemed to slow on its own, obedient to his presence. The figure raised a hand, and a cold wind pressed against the windshield. freezing it with frost that formed words, "Pay the toll." "What toll?" I shouted, my voice cracking. He didn't answer. His shadow stretched unnaturally, reaching toward the car, creeping up the doors, brushing against my arms with fingers that weren't there. The air thickened, pressing against my chest, filling my lungs with fear. I realized then that the highway wasn't just a place, it was sentient, and this figure was its emissary, a collector of debts. The radio crackled to life again, not with whispers, but with laughter. Children, women, men, all layered, distorted, screaming and giggling at once. They spoke of travelers who had tried to leave without paying, who had vanished into the fog, leaving nothing but echoes. And now, it was my turn. "You drive for us," the figure finally spoke, voice like broken glass scraping stone. "1 mile, 1 memory, 1 sin." I trembled. I didn't understand, but instinct screamed at me, comply, or be claimed by the highway forever. I gripped the wheel, heart hammering, and in that moment, a vision flashed before my eyes. Faces, people I had wronged, lies I had told, betrayals I had buried. Each memory was a coin, and he demanded payment. I swallowed hard, pressed the accelerator, and the visions intensified. The fog swirled, forming shapes that reached through the windshield, clawing at me, demanding release. My sins burned like fire inside me. Every stolen moment, every cruel word, every forgotten promise laid bare. The toll was mine alone to pay. And then, abruptly, it was over. The figure vanished. The fog parted. The shadows retreated, curling back into the darkness. The radio fell silent. But I knew. The toll had been taken, but not fully. The highway had left a fragment of him, a reminder etched into the very air I breathed. A promise. When midnight struck again, the collector would return, and the payment would demand more than I could imagine. I pressed forward, gripping the wheel, staring into the fog, knowing that every mile, every turn, every strike of the clock was a debt I could not escape. And the highway? It was patient, eternally patient, waiting for me to fail. Capítulo 8, the abandoned motel. The fog thinned just enough for me to see it. A motel rising out of the darkness, neon letters flickering weakly, spelling vacancy. Its paint was chipped, windows dark and empty, and the asphalt leading to its entrance was cracked, overgrown with weeds. It should have been impossible. There had never been a motel here before, but there it stood, patient and silent, waiting. I slowed, curiosity fighting with fear. Part of me wanted to drive past, to ignore it, but another part, the part the highway had claimed, pulled me forward. My tires crunched on the gravel as I approached, the headlights catching broken signs swinging in the wind. Something about the air was wrong. Thick, heavy, smelling faintly of smoke and something metallic, like blood long dried. The door creaked as I pushed it open. The lobby was empty, yet not empty. Shadows pooled in corners, stretching unnaturally, brushing the edges of the flickering light. Dust motes floated like suspended stars, and the faint scent of decay lingered in the air. Behind the front desk, a bell sat, small, tarnished, but it rang without a touch. 3 strikes. A whisper slithered across the room. "Check in, or check out forever." I froze. The words weren't in my mind, they were in my bones. The highway had sent me here for a reason, though I did not yet understand it. The motel room stretched down a hallway that seemed to twist, impossible in its geometry. I could hear the faintest of movements, footsteps behind doors, whispers through walls, laughter that was both joyful and cruel. I entered the first room on the right. The bed was neatly made, sheets stiff and white, but the mirror above the dresser reflected not the room, but me, older, tired, eyes hollow. I spun around, empty. Only the bed, only the air, only the faint suffocating smell of smoke. From the hallway came a soft knock, 1, then 2, then 3. I held my breath. No one entered, yet the knocking continued, moving closer. I wanted to flee, but the door behind me had vanished. Only the hall stretched on, endless, twisting. The radio crackled, then whispered. Names, dozens of them, each one belonging to travelers who had checked in and never left. Their voices rose and fell, layered, a chorus of despair. They told stories of rooms that trapped time, of hallways that led nowhere, of mirrors that reflected not what you were. but what the highway wanted you to see. I ran down the hall, heart hammering, breath ragged, but the motel stretched on, unyielding. The neon flicker from outside cast shadows that danced, reaching for me, pulling at my sleeves, tugging at my hair. The hallway was alive, patient, eternal. And then, abruptly, I found myself back in the lobby. The door behind me creaked open, fog rolling in from the highway. The bell rang once more. I knew, with a chilling certainty, that the motel was not just a place. It was a gateway, a trap, and the highway had sent me here to see, to remember, to fear. I stepped back into my car, tires crunching gravel, headlights slicing through fog, and I knew the highway wasn't finished with me. Not yet. The motel waited, patient, eternally patient. Capitolo 9. Eyes in the fog. The highway had become a living thing. Each mile I drove, the fog thickened, curling like smoke around the car, pressing against the glass, hiding everything beyond the reach of my headlights. My hands gripped the wheel until my knuckles whitened. The silence was deceptive. Beneath it, something waited. Then I saw them. Eyes, dozens, hundreds, shimmering faintly in the gray. Some perched atop trees, some hovering low in the mist, glinting like stars reflected in dark water. They were watching me. I could feel them, not just in my vision but crawling over my skin, whispering against my nerves. The headlights caught a few of them, but when I blinked, they multiplied, surrounding the car, pressing in from all sides. A whisper rode the fog. We see you. We know you. You cannot hide. Panic gripped me, cold and relentless. I tried to accelerate, but the car responded sluggishly, as though the highway itself resisted my escape. The eyes followed every movement, their gaze heavy, intelligent, hungry. Some glimmered with malice, others with sorrow, as though they were the remnants of those who had vanished before me. And I knew, with a sinking certainty, that they had waited a long time for a new witness. I turned on the radio, desperate for distraction, but it only amplified their presence. Static erupted into whispers, layered with voices pleading and laughing simultaneously. Don't look back. Don't stop. Don't leave. Each command pressed against my mind like a tangible weight. Then one set of eyes moved differently, closer, faster, larger. It reflected the moonlight in the fog, a deep golden hue, intelligent and cruel. It blinked, and my own reflection appeared within it. Not the reflection in my car, not the mirror from the motel, but a version of me older, hollow-eyed with a grin I had never worn. It smiled. I realized the eyes weren't just observing, they were testing me, probing for weakness, for fear, and they were not alone. Others began to shift, forming shapes in this fog, faces, hands, bodies, moving toward me with impossible speed, yet never breaking the bounds of the mist. The highway had become a stage, and I, a performer trapped in its eternal act of terror. A sudden motion on the passenger seat made me spin. Empty. Nothing. Yet I felt a presence, cold and intent, leaning in. My heart thudded in my throat. The eyes pressed closer, shimmering in patterns that almost resembled letters. You belong. I slammed my foot on the accelerator. The tires screeched against the asphalt. The fog thinned just enough for me to see the road ahead, straight and endless. But the eyes remained, floating, watching, patient. And I understood the truth, the unspoken law of the highway. The fog would never let go. The eyes would never blink. And the next strike of midnight would bring them closer, demanding attention, demanding fear, demanding submission. I gripped the wheel tighter. My pulse drummed in my ears, and the eyes in the fog waited, eternal and unyielding, for me to fail. Capitolo 10. The Bridge of Shadows. The highway narrowed, the asphalt slick beneath the tires as fog swirled with an unnatural intelligence. Up ahead, a bridge appeared, suspended over black water that shimmered like oil in the moonlight. Its arches were jagged, like broken bones, and the shadows beneath it stretched impossibly long. I slowed instinctively, sensing the weight of something ancient waiting there. The moment I crossed the threshold, the fog thickened to a solid wall, pressing in from all sides. The bridge groaned beneath the car, a sound more alive than mechanical, resonating in my chest. Somewhere in the darkness, whispers rose, not in any language I knew, shouts of warning, please, laughter, all overlapping into a single grating hum. And then I saw them. Figures, not solid, but semi-transparent, drifting along the edges of the bridge. Some crouched low, their faces hidden in shadow. Others floated upright, elongated and skeletal. They didn't move in any natural way. They slid, twisted, gliding over the surface as if gravity were a suggestion rather than a rule. And all of them stared at me, their eyes hollow, their attention unbroken. The radio erupted into static, voices screaming in unison. "The bridge claims what it sees! The bridge holds the lost!" The bridge. It cut off abruptly, leaving only my pulse thundering in my ears. I gripped the wheel tighter. My reflection in the rearview mirror was pale, hollow-eyed, but behind it, something else. Another face, twisted in agony, appearing for a heartbeat and vanishing, like a warning. I realized the bridge didn't just stretch across water, it stretched across something else. Time, memory, fear. Every traveler who had walked this path had left pieces behind, trapped between the planks, between the shadows. One figure drifted closer, arms outstretched. I wanted to swerve, to flee, but the steering wheel felt heavy, anchored by some unseen hand. Its face came into view, a hollow mask, cracked, grinning, and then its eyes blinked. Human, knowing, hungry. A whisper slithered into my mind. Step aside, or join them. The air grew colder, frost creeping across the windshield, forming shapes, letters, symbols, faces. The shadows beneath the bridge stretched upward, as if trying to claim me. The fog pressed harder, almost tactile, curling around the tires, the mirrors, the doors. I realized with bone-deep certainty that the bridge was alive. It had a memory, a hunger, and it knew who I was, what I feared most. One wrong move, one hesitation, and I would become another shadow, trapped forever, a whisper in the fog, a lost traveler for the next soul to pass. I held my breath, pressed my foot to the pedal, and crossed. The car shuddered violently as the bridge groaned, shadows scraping the sides. And I dared not look away. My heartbeat matched the rhythm of the asphalt, the pulse of the fog, the sigh of the bridge. And when I reached the other side, the fog thinned, the shadows receded, and the highway continued, endless and unyielding. But I knew I would return. The bridge remembered, and it was waiting. Capitolo 11. Whispers beneath the guardrails. The fog had returned thicker than ever, curling around the guardrails like living serpents. Every mile felt heavier, the air dense and almost viscous, pressing against the windshield. The highway ahead was empty, yet I knew I was not alone. Shadows lingered at the edges of the fog, shifting, watching. Then I heard it, a whisper. Soft, almost inaudible, coming from beneath the guardrails. I slammed on the brakes, my tires squealing against the asphalt. The sound wasn't mechanical, it was alive, curling through the metal, the concrete seeping into the car itself. "Come closer." My heart pounded. The words were drawn out, seductive and cruel, promising secrets I didn't want to know. I leaned forward, straining to see, but the fog swallowed everything beyond the headlights. And yet, the whispers persisted, multiplying. "Look beneath. Look, look, look." I turned slowly, craning my neck, trying to glimpse under the guardrails. Shapes moved in the darkness, faint, shifting figures, impossibly thin, like shadows stretched over wireframes. Some crouched low, their hands reaching. Others leaned close, mouths moving in silent screams. I realized with horror that these were the echoes of travelers who had vanished, their fears trapped here, clawing at the world above. The radio crackled, static and laughter intertwining. Names were called out, my name among them. "You shouldn't have come. You shouldn't have come." Each repetition burrowed into my skull, pressing into my thoughts. I covered my ears, but the whispers only grew louder, as if the fog itself was speaking directly into my mind. A shadow rose from beneath the rail, taller than any human, its form wavering, half solid, half mist. It leaned toward the car, its elongated fingers brushing the tires. I could see its face, hollow, grinning, a mirror of every fear I had ever felt. Its eyes glowed faintly, beckoning me. I swallowed hard, pressing the accelerator, but the fog thickened instantly, curling around the car, slowing me, hurting me forward like an invisible hand. The whispers surged into a crescendo, voices overlapping, the lost, the damned, the unseen, all chanting, pleading, mocking, "Join us, stay with us, forever." I forced myself to keep moving, headlights cutting through the murk, tires rattling on the cracked asphalt. The shadows receded slightly, the whispers dimming, but only enough to remind me that they were still there, patient, waiting, eternal. And then, for the briefest moment, the fog parted. I saw the highway stretching ahead, straight and empty. Yet I knew better. Beneath the guardrails, the whispers remained, alive, waiting for the next traveler to heed their call. I exhaled, trembling, gripping the wheel, knowing this. The highway was not merely a road, it was a predator. The fog, the shadows, the whispers, they were all teeth, all waiting to drag me under the surface, to claim me piece by piece. And when midnight struck again, the whispers would be louder, closer, more insistent, and I would be forced to listen. Capítulo 12, the Tollkeeper returns. The fog thickened like a living shroud, curling around the tires, seeping through the cracks of the windshield. My pulse pounded with the rhythm of the highway, a rhythm older than time, older than fear itself. Somewhere ahead, the pulse of the asphalt changed, slower, heavier, deliberate. Then he appeared, the Tollkeeper, standing tall in the middle of the lane, coat blacker than night, eyes glittering shards of glass, a shadow taller than any man should be. He didn't move, he didn't need to. The air bent around him, thickening, pressing against my chest. My foot hovered over the brake, heart hammering. The last time I had seen him, I had escaped only by sheer luck. Tonight, he had been waiting. He raised a hand, the fog rippled like water. A voice, not through the radio, not through the car, but in my head. "The toll is due." I swallowed hard. I've already paid," I shouted, voice cracking. A laugh slithered along the fog. "Paid? You cannot pay what you do not remember. Every mile, every fear, every secret. You owe me. All of it." The asphalt beneath the car shuddered. Shadows writhed at the edges of the fog, clawing toward me. I tried to turn, but the steering wheel felt weighted with iron. The Tollkeeper didn't move closer. He didn't need to. The highway itself leaned toward him, bending, warping, forcing me forward. Then the visions began. Faces, twisted, screaming, pleading, flashed in the rearview mirror. The reflections of every traveler who had failed, every soul claimed by the highway. They were suspended in the fog, half-formed, half-destroyed, repeating their mistakes. Their cries echoing in layers, pressing into my mind. "Your turn, your turn, your turn." I slammed my foot on the accelerator. The car lurched forward, tires screeching against the asphalt, but the Tollkeeper remained. His shadow stretched, growing, reaching inside the car. The air turned cold, each breath sharp as glass. A finger tapped on the hood, light, deliberate, terrifying. "You cannot escape," the voice whispered. "Not now, not ever. The toll is eternal." Panic clawed at my chest. I pressed the accelerator harder, heart hammering, vision blurring, fog spinning around me like a living thing. The shadows beneath the fog swirled, forming shapes, hands, faces, bodies, reaching, grasping, pulling. The Tollkeeper's eyes gleamed brighter, shards of pure judgment reflecting back at me. And then, abruptly, the fog parted. The lane ahead stretched endlessly, straight and clear. The shadows retreated. The Tollkeeper was gone. But I knew the truth. He had marked me. The toll had not been fully paid. The highway would remember. The Tollkeeper would return. And the next time he did, the highway would demand more than fear. I gripped the wheel, chest tight, eyes fixed on the darkness ahead. Midnight was coming again, and I was running out of time. Capítulo 13, the vanishing rest stop. The night was heavy, thick with fog that clung to the car like wet silk. Every mile I drove, the highway whispered, soft, seductive, cruel. I had thought I had seen it all, the mirrors, the bridge, the Tollkeeper, but the highway still held secrets, and tonight it would reveal another. A rest stop appeared suddenly, lit by flickering sodium lamps that buzzed like the shriek of insects. It was perfect in its emptiness, as though no one had been there for years. I slowed, desperate for respite, for a moment's peace from the relentless road. The sign read simply, "Rest stop, open 24 hours." The moment I parked, A chill crawled up my spine. The asphalt beneath the car seemed to pulse with life. I stepped out, fog curling around my boots, and the silence pressed against me, heavy and patient. The rest stop was empty, yet not empty. Shadows lingered beneath the lamps, stretching unnaturally, twisting in ways no body should. I walked toward the vending machines. The lights flickered and died, leaving only the weak glow of the exit sign. And then I heard it, the footsteps, slow, deliberate, echoing in the empty rest stop. Not mine, behind me, ahead of me, all around me. A voice, soft and mocking, whispered from the shadows, "You shouldn't have stopped." I spun, heart hammering, but there was no one. Only fog, only shadows, only the faint outline of the rest stop stretching farther than it should. Hallways and doors appearing where none had existed moments before. I realized with horror that the place wasn't static, it was alive, folding in on itself, reshaping, mocking my attempts to understand it. The vending machines rattled violently, dispensing nothing but air. A mirror in the corner reflected not me, but a version of myself older, hollow-eyed, terrified. The reflection grinned, and I knew it had already been trapped here once, doomed to wander the rest stop endlessly. I ran, each door I tried leading me deeper into the labyrinth. Shadows stretched, twisted, pressed against the walls, reaching for me with invisible fingers. The fog followed, curling around my ankles, tugging, whispering secrets, fears, and lies. I stumbled into the parking lot. The car was gone, or perhaps it never had been there. The lamps flickered and vanished, and with them, the rest stop disappeared entirely. I was back on the highway, fog rolling endlessly ahead, empty yet full of unseen eyes. And I knew the truth. The highway had claimed another space, another trap. The rest stop had been nothing more than an invitation, a lesson in futility. Stop and you vanish. Pause and the highway remembers. I gripped the wheel, heart hammering, eyes fixed ahead. Midnight was coming, and somewhere, beyond the fog, the shadows waited, patient and eternal. The highway never forgives, it never forgets, and it always wants more. Capitolo Cortorns, the clock strikes again. The dashboard clock blinked midnight, the same moment over and over, as if the universe had folded upon itself. My heart slammed against my ribs with a rhythm that matched the pulse of the highway, a pulse that seemed to grow stronger with every tick. I knew what was coming, the highway's most merciless trick yet. Fog rolled in like a living tide, thick and cold, curling around the tires, slipping inside the car, pressing against my skin. The road stretched before me, endless, empty, or so I thought. Shadows flickered at the edges of the headlights, sharp and unnatural, moving just beyond perception. And then I saw it. The clock, not on the dashboard but suspended in the fog above the road, massive, bronze hands frozen at 12, ticking backward and forward at the same time. A whisper rode the wind, threading through the fog. Time is yours, and it is mine. I pressed the accelerator, tires squealing, heart hammering, but the highway slowed me. The fog thickened, swirling into shapes that resembled the travelers I had seen before. Faces twisted in despair, hands reaching, mouths opening to scream in silence. Every tick of the clock echoed in my ears, a hammer of inevitability. I was trapped. The loop had returned, more insistent than ever. Suddenly, the rearview mirror filled with faces. Not my reflection alone this time, but dozens, hundreds, twisting, morphing, all whispering, "It's midnight, it's midnight, it's midnight." My hands shook. The Tollkeeper's shadow stretched across the car, crawling along the seats, the dashboard pressing into my mind. And then time fractured. The fog pulsed, the highway bent. One moment I was driving through the endless night. The next I was standing in the motel lobby, then on the bridge, then at the vanishing rest stop. Each memory overlapped the next, each past moment pressing into the present, all of them bleeding together. Midnight had trapped me fully now. I was everywhere, nowhere, all at once. A voice, sharp and relentless, carved into my skull. "Pay attention. Fail, and eternity swallows you." I pressed my hands to the wheel, struggling against the shifting highway. The clock above me swung violently, its hands moving at impossible speeds, dragging time behind them like a net. Every blink brought a new horror, faces of travelers who had failed, shadows clawing through the fog, whispers turning into screams that only I could hear. I realized then the truth. The highway didn't just stop time, it controlled it, twisted it, fed off it. Midnight was its prey, and I was the newest offering. The highway didn't forgive, didn't relent. It was eternal, and I was trapped in its perfect, merciless loop. The hands of the clock struck 12 again, and again, and again, and I knew with certainty that sank deeper than fear that I would never escape. Midnight was infinite. The highway was infinite. Capítulo 15, the end or beginning. The fog was thicker than ever, choking the horizon, curling around the car like fingers of ice. Midnight pulsed ahead, a heartbeat in the asphalt. Counting down or counting up, I no longer knew. Every mile I drove felt like a lifetime compressed into a single breath. The highway had become infinite, endless, and it waited, patient, eternal. I knew the Tollkeeper would appear. I knew the shadows beneath the guardrails would rise. I knew the rest stops, the bridge, the mirrors, the eyes in the fog, all would converge tonight. And I realized, with a cold clarity, that there was no escape, only the loop. Only midnight. Then, a figure stepped onto the road. Black coat, eyes like shattered glass, shadow stretching impossibly long. The Tollkeeper. He raised a hand. Not threatening, but commanding. The highway bent toward him, curving, folding, a living thing that obeyed his will. My tires screamed against the asphalt, but the car moved slowly, reluctantly, as if aware of the stakes. The final toll, he whispered. Voice both cruel and patient. Pay it or join them. And I saw them, all the travelers I had glimpsed before, trapped in fog, shadows, mirrors, motel rooms, vanishing rest stops, their faces twisted in despair, reaching, pleading. They were silent now, waiting for me to make a choice. Every mistake, every fear, every lie I had carried became a weight pressing against my chest. I gripped the wheel, heart hammering, and screamed into the night, I refuse! The highway pulsed violently. The fog surged, swallowing the car, the shadows, the Tollkeeper. Time fractured again. Memories overlapped with visions, and for a heartbeat, I saw every path I could have taken, every wrong turn, every loop already completed. The Tollkeeper's eyes blazed with judgment. Then I drove. I drove not with speed, but with intent. I let the fog rise, let the shadows crawl, let the highway pulse beneath me. Every loop I had suffered became a rhythm, every whisper a guide. I drove through the mirrors, through the rest stops, across the bridge, through the eyes in the fog, and for the first time, the highway resisted. Impossible, the Tollkeeper hissed, but I kept going. Midnight struck again, over and over, yet I drove through it. The fog thinned, the shadows receded. The road stretched forward, straight, clear, infinite, but mine. And then, in the silence, I realized the highway had changed. The Tollkeeper had not vanished, but he had been thwarted. The loops, the horror, the endless midnight, they remained, yes, but now I was the one who moved within them, not the other way around. The highway waits, it always waits, but I am no longer merely a traveler. I am part of it, and maybe that is both the end and the beginning.
Epilogue: The highway never sleeps. The fog never truly lifted. Even now, long after that final midnight, I can feel it curling around the edges of my consciousness, pressing against the corners of my mind. The highway lies ahead, silent yet alive, waiting for another traveler, another soul daring or foolish enough to enter its domain. I return to the world of clocks, sunlight, and ordinary streets, but the rhythm of the highway pulses within me. I hear it in the quiet moments, in the hum of tires on asphalt, in the ticking of any clock at midnight. Shadows move in the corner of my vision. Eyes gleam faintly in reflective surfaces, and whispers drift through the air, almost inaudible, reminding me that the Tollkeeper is patient, eternal. I walk among people, smile, pretend, but the memories are relentless. The motel, the vanishing rest stop, the bridge of shadows, the eyes in the fog. Every detail etched into my mind with the sharpness of frost, the weight of stone. They are reminders, warnings, proof that the highway is more than a road, it is a living predator. a judge, a collector of time, fear, and regret. Sometimes, late at night, I find myself standing at the edge of a road I don't recognize. The fog curls low, and for a heartbeat, I see the Tollkeeper, waiting, his eyes catching the faintest glimmer of the moon. The clock strikes midnight, and I remember, the highway does not forget. It does not forgive. It only waits. I have learned its rules. I have survived its tests. But survival is not freedom. I am tethered to it, a ghost of my own life, a witness to eternity in motion. Each decision I make, each mile I drive, each second I live is measured against its relentless rhythm. The highway moves, even when I do not. It watches, always, and perhaps, one day, I will see another traveler on that fog-laden stretch. Someone who laughs at warnings, who ignores the subtle signs. I will watch from the shadows, heart hammering, knowing the Tollkeeper will rise. The eyes will follow, and the fog will reclaim them, as it always does. The highway is eternal. Midnight is eternal. And I, for all my knowledge and experience, remain only a part of its story, a story without end. A story that continues with every soul who dares to drive into the fog, into the pulse of darkness, into the infinite highway where time stopped, but never truly ends. The road waits, and so do I.